Good evening, Nigeria. This is Jump Out Nigeria, and my name is Taye Charles Okon. Jump Out Nigeria is a program that we have every 8 p.m. Nigerian time on Sunday. What do? We talk about Nigeria and issues that has to do with our nation in a different way. That is why we are jumping out of the status quo and doing it the way we should be doing it. Today, we have two topics we're going to be talking about in quick successions. And the first topic is going to be talking about the insincerity of Nigerian leaders in the fight against corruption. And after that, we're going to be having a bus stop in Ondo State, a quick one at that, to talk about the integrity of the people, of the political players in the polity of Ondo State. And I'll be doing this with two guests on the show like I always do every Sunday. I have with me today an elder statesman, a doctor, a person who always talks about Nigeria. You can feel the pulse from his voice and his words. I have joining me this evening, Dr. Wumi Akintide. You're welcome to the show. Thank you so very much for coming, Doctor.
Thank you, Taye.
Okay, I also have another guest who will also be on this show with me this evening. He is a legal practitioner, and not just that, he is a human rights crusader. And I'm talking about no other person than Barrister Lemoros Oshoma. Thank you so very much for being on Jump Out Nigeria this evening. Okay, okay, it's nice to have you. You like help me to unmute? Okay,
yes,
great. You've been unmuted.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah,
oh, great.
Pleasure.
So let's just start without wasting any time because we have two very great topics to talk about today. I will start from Doctor. Please, you are an elder statesman. You've seen a whole lot that people like us haven't seen, that we only read in the papers online, and also we heard stories from our parents like you. Would you want to help us with possibly the name of any of Nigerian past leaders who you think have been sincere in the fight against corruption? And before you answer, sir, I would want to take a cue from a statement you made recently. I'm going to be quoting you a bit. You said if the current president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is not going to emulate the incumbent president of Malawi, that is Lazarus, it should just vacate Aso Rock. And I want to say that is a very daring statement to start with.
Well, thank you, Taye.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be on your program. Let me first correct the first impression that you had by introducing me as a statesman. I can hardly be called a statesman. A technocrat, more or less.
Okay.
Because I work in the Federal Civil Service for 25 years, and I rose to the position, my last position, before I went on a political appointment, was as secretary to the Joint Commission of Nigeria, Joint Economic Commission of Nigeria with the rest of the world. I was secretary for 3 years. Now, but after that, I later went to Ondo State to work as the director of the Directorate of Food, Roads, and Rural Infrastructure. It was a federal appointment.
Okay.
That was given, but it was under Governor Ohai Makahibe that was posted to Ondo State because I come from. So you can call me a technocrat rather than a statesman.
Okay.
I will be doing myself if I call myself a statesman because I won't have any leg to stand. If I compare people like Obafemi Awolowo with Obasanjo, with some of these big names we have. So I thought that to be called a statesman. I haven't cleared that.
Okay.
To talk, you said fighting corruption. And you asked which of the leaders do I think is fighting corruption the correct way? I will tell you that the first person that comes to mind is happens to be a military man. And I'm talking Murtala Muhammad. Wow. Murtala Muhammad, I know him very well. And that's why I feel comfortable talking about him. Because I joined the Federal Civil Service in 1968, January 3rd. And my first posting should have been to the Foreign Service. But Nigeria was fighting for that time. So instead of sending me to the Foreign Service, which I applied for, I was sent to the Home Service. So I went to the Ministry of Defense. And while in the Ministry of Defense, Army Headquarters, I was privileged to work with Muritala Muhammad. Muritala Muhammad was the chairman of the recruitment panel for commissioned officers in the military. And I happened to be the secretary because I joined as an administrator. So I was the secretary to a panel where Muritala Muhammad was chairman. Now, I must tell you, I've never seen another Nigerian like Muritala Muhammad.
Wow.
Why? Because when I served under him, anytime we have a meeting, I'm the one arranging the meeting. If we are going to have an interview for commissioned officers, I am going to be there. I was always the one to cover the meeting. One thing I noticed about that man was that man was always in a hurry. I don't know why. It is as if he believed that he was not going to live long. Because everything, if there's any decision to be taken, he wants that decision executed and carried out with immediate effect. He doesn't want any delay at all. That was, and I thought he was a slave driver driving me crazy. Everything had to be done with immediate effect. So, but I didn't know that he had a premonition that he wasn't going to last long. Because when he became the head of state, you know, he lasted for only 200 days. 200 days in power, as documented by one very famous journalist, Amagada. Amagada was the name. Was the person who wrote 200 Days into Eternity. That was the title of the book. That was him describing Muritala Muhammad. Now, Muritala Muhammad was a true champion fighting corruption. And why you will know that he was a true champion, I will quote you an example of what he did. You know, during the Civil War, Muritala Muhammad was the commanding officer of the military troops. And the last war that he fought, the last battle that he fought was the Battle of Abagana. I happen to know all these things because I was AS Army. I was in charge of the military during the war. So I knew all of the transactions, including the secret documents about the war. I knew about it. So that was how I came to know that Muritala Muhammad, who was my chairman of the panel in which I sat, when he became head of state, I happen to know his record. He was the commanding officer who fought the Abagana disaster, they call it, in which Nigeria lost so many of our soldiers. In fact, that was what led to Nigeria troops. They then decided to be using cow. They got cattle from the north. So they will be driving the cattle in front of them so that the cattle can trip off the Ubunugwe. Ubunugwe was the native bomb that the Biafrans actually created. In their imagination, they created Ubunugwe. It's a landmine. So what the Nigerian troop was doing was to drive the cattle, to let the cattle go ahead of the troops. So that by the cattle going ahead of the troops, they will trip off the Ubunugwe, and then it will kill all of the cattle rather than killing soldiers. But before they did that, Ubunugwe has killed so many Nigerian troops. So he had that record behind him that he was a commanding officer that caused the Abagana disaster. So when he became head of state, taking over from Yakubu Gowon, that was in 1975.
Yes.
July 29, when he became head of state, one of his first speech was that he was going to tackle corruption up front. And he did. He did. What did he do that made me feel that he was the best man, best of our leaders who actually fought corruption? Now, the first thing that he did to tell Nigerians that he meant business. You know, after leading the war, the Civil War, a lot of our military leaders, like Obasanjo, like Scorpion, Benjamin Adekunle, like Akuzia. Akuzia is on the Biafra side. So many of them who fought in that war, they went to the central bank in Enugu and looted the whole place, took all the money. So most of them came back very rich, and Murtala Muhammad was one of them. So the money that he got from that loot, he used to build 20 rows of houses in Kano. Anybody who is born in Kano can bear me out. Anybody can. Anybody who has never heard about this story, you are hearing it today. All the 20 rows of building that Murtala built from corrupt money, he himself declared that all the houses were built with money he got in gains. The first thing he did on becoming president or head of state was to say all those houses are forfeited to the federal government.
Wow, I think that is great, Doctor. If I may cut you,
Yes.
let me ask Barrister this, because you made a whole lot of statements that I know that people might not really know about, and because you were preview and part and parcel of it, you can
Yes.
give us, you can say we are hearing from the horse's mouth. Let me
Yes.
ask Barrister Liberous. According to Doctor,
yeah,
Murtala ruled Nigeria between July 29, 1975 to February 13, 1976.
For 200 days, yes.
I don't even know how old I was, if I was born at all. Okay. And if that would be the person, we would say in 2023 was the person who fought against corruption well in Nigeria. I don't know what we would say we've been doing if that is actually the fact. What do you think, Barrister?
In 1980, I can't really remember now, but in the 80s, okay. Dan Agbese wrote a book, a column titled "Knowing When to Die." If Buhari, our president, the just past president, had died in 1983, God forbid,
it would have been harder.
Today, we would have been saying, oh, Buhari was one of the best presidents that fought corruption. Correct. So what Dan Agbese was simply saying in that column then was that Murtala Muhammad knew when to die.
Yes.
Wow.
But some persons in this federal civil service would tell you otherwise. Books abound. This account of civil war, Prof is talking about his own account. There are so many other accounts that we have also read, but that I'm not discussing the civil war today.
Okay.
But the civil service today, some persons will tell you that the history of the lackadaisical rot that we find in the civil service today actually started from the time of Murtala Muhammad, when Murtala Muhammad sacked permanent secretary via radio announcement, contrary to the public service rules. Some persons were on their way to work. They heard their name on the radio that they've been sacked.
They sacked.
Correct.
And a lot of them were living in government quarters.
Correct.
And from grace to grass overnight. And so their colleagues that saw what happened to them said, you know what? I'm not going to wait to be sacked. I will take my own while I'm still in service now and wait so that when they relieve me of my duty unceremoniously, like they have done today, I will have a place to put my head. That story for another day. But I also want to say this, because we're talking corruption, really.
Yes.
You find out that everybody in government today in Nigeria was once a critic of previous government about not fighting corruption properly. Everybody that leaves government will also tell you how government should fight corruption. Obasanjo as a president, for example,
okay,
we know how Obasanjo used the anti-corruption agency, as a poster boy to whip perceived enemies into line. But when he was criticized, but the moment he left office, he started telling us how to fight corruption, how we should do it. And people now see him as a God. Because every government is always worse than the previous one. because of the attitude of the everyday man vis-a-vis the rules and regulations laid down by government. And I give you instances. For example, my father worked and retired as a chief inspector of education in the Bende State Ministry of Education. After retiring, this man was shuttling between Auchi and Benin for verification to collect his pension. And he called all of us and said, never in your life should you dream of working in the government civil service. Because these are people who gave their all to service. But at the end of the day, because to collect that which they have worked for became a problem under the military era, the ones that came after them now feel, you know what, let us take the one we can take. I grew up as a son of a headmaster, I grew up in a primary school quarters. So imagine having to leave service, no house, nothing. You were living in government quarters, you were relocating back to the village. And in the village then, there were amenities. In 1975, Okpela had pipe-borne water. Okpela. I don't even know you know where Okpela is. I'm not talking about Auchi. Okpela.
Okay, close to Auchi, yeah.
Yes, not what do you call it, overhead tank, water boards. So what now happens over time is the fact that because of the attitude of this grab and take, grab and run with it, everybody in Nigeria now thinks it is their responsibility to fend for themselves, grab it the way you can grab it. So that led to the collapse of local governance. In the absence of local governance, corruption thrived. Growing up as a young boy, I did not have the dream or vision of even going to Lagos. The highest dream I had was graduate, go to school, maybe be a teacher, and you could still, as a teacher, live in government quarters and raise up children who will, be envy of the society. But seeing how my teachers were ending up, how teachers who taught me in school were ending up, and it was in my time that Okada riding started. And people started riding Okada, and then 50 naira, 50 kobo for a drop. So seeing that some of your teachers who retired were ending as Okada riders with nothing, you will want to aspire higher.
Yes.
So, and that's how corruption gradually became endemic in the system, coupled with the fact that you had people who, these military boys that we're talking about, who had no faintest idea of what governance is all about. So it was, they do it the way they wanted to do it. And there was no mentorship. So if we had fumbled and wobbled with the democracy from Awolowo's time and made our mistakes, just like other developing countries like in Europe that we're talking about today and Asia, we probably would have been far better than where we are today. But the khaki boys came and it became according to the dictate of the man who is seated there and not the rule of law. In the absence of rule of law, the rule of the mind of the strongest tribe. That's why Prof is talking about Muritala Muhammad, the way he wanted it. But if you go further, was it the way the law prescribed how it should be done? That's another thing. That's why today, I'll quickly round up so that I can yield the floor for Prof. That's why today it becomes, fashionable for people not to question wealth. For a man in office, like my cousin who became a councillor, who could barely rent a house, but bought a house, bought trucks, and people were happy and celebrating him. Not because he made money from his salary, but because it is their turn to chop. So that's why all of us And if we must fight corruption, it is not enough to say, do it the way Buhari was doing it. Buhari did not fight corruption. Buhari never for one day fought corruption, but merely harassed people. It is not what we need to do is first and foremost look at the structure of governance. I talk about the local government, which is closest to the people. I guess where you are there now, you don't even bother about what the state has to offer. It is the government at the local level. Once you get the government at the local level, and then we become responsible to the government at that local level, and institutions are put in place and strengthened, we become proactive. Not instead of reactive. You wait for a man to steal and before you begin to arrest him. We can never fight corruption that way. You put structures and system in place that will make it unattractive for people to steal. And in rounding up, they say the Danish people, Denmark, are the happiest people on earth. Do you know why they are the happiest people? In Denmark, taxes is 60%. If you earn, let's say, 100,000 naira, the government takes 60,000 naira. But the remaining 40,000 naira, that's the 40%, you might not even need it because your school, government provide you the school, they provide you with health facilities, they provide the good roads, and the basic things are subsidized because you have government that is local to the people. And not one behemoth called the federal government trying to superintend everybody like we have in Nigeria. And a National Assembly with committees that are more than the members trying to commit everybody, the way they want it. That's the challenge that we have.
Okay, now I'll be going back to Dr. Akin today. We have spoken a lot about our past leaders, both the military and the democracy we have right now that we are trying to also fastly and tightly to our chest. I want to talk about how much Nigerians do not trust our leaders. You were talking about them being insincere in the fight against corruption, and of course, the way the government is being handled. One of the most recent of these instances was when President Tinubu went to present the budget to the Senate. And the rumor that went around was that he actually brought an empty box to the Senate. And that was indeed a strong statement to make about the president. And there were a lot of defenses from the Senate saying he sent in a flash drive that contained the documents needed in the budget and all whatnot. And let me quickly add to this. The current trip that the president has with his team to Dubai. We're told that a social media influencer by the name Toke Makinwa was part of the elect 1,411 people that went with Tinubu to Dubai for that meeting. And Nigerians are asking, that should not be true. With the way we really do not trust our leaders, I don't think how do we then go about governance and being a sane Nigerian, seeing the governance of Nigeria?
Taye?
Yes.
You don't jump away from the point that my colleague has made.
Okay.
It was a beautiful contribution.
Oh, great.
There's nothing my colleague has said that I can disagree with, even though age-wise, we may be poles apart. But I want to correct the impression.
Okay.
That Murtala Muhammad, by some of what he did, because I was in government.
Oh,
I was
great.
a top administrator in government.
I think we might have just lost. Okay, great. We are back.
Yeah. By what he did, it was because, Murtala Muhammad took over after almost 8 to 9 years of Yakubu Gowon. We must not forget that. And part of the reason that Murtala Muhammad and Obasanjo took power at the time was because they said, I'm going to quote them verbatim, they said Nigeria was adrift under Yakubu Gowon. And it was that was not their only complaint. The other complaint they had was that the civil servants were the one ruling, telling the commissioners what to do And so Murtala Muhammad wanted to stop that drift. Anybody who knows anything about the civil service will tell you this. Because at that time, we had very powerful, very strong civil servants. We are talking about, that was the time that Sule Katagun was the chairman of the Federal Civil Service Commission. And Sir Manua, Dr. Manua, was his deputy. And people like Egweishi was the secretary to government. And Way, and all these people. So, Murtala's complaint was that the civil servants were too strong. They were too powerful. And so one of the first things he wanted to do was to check them and make sure that they return back power to those people who actually took over control and allowed them to rule. So that was why he decided to sack all of those people. I can mention the names of them. They were fantastic. In fact, there were two of them that I will never forget because I sat on them, I worked with them. There's one, E.M.E. Ebong, I think he's from Calabar area. Powerful. And there was one Festus Akini. Festus Adeni, I think he later became chief Aro of Mokpa. And then you have all that strong permanent secretary, the six musketeers, they call them. One of them, this point is very important. One of them is Alison Ayida and Asiodu, Philip Asiodu. There is also one guy named Ahmed Jordan. That's three. Festus Adeni was one of them. And then there was one guy who was just rising in the civil service at the time. He was a northerner. His name was Abubakar Alaji Abubakar. He was a Sokoto prince. Now, those were the people who were really controlling the people who took over power. And that was what Murtala Muhammad wanted to correct. But one thing I have to agree with my colleague when he said that the military were part of the strength for corruption in Nigeria. It's not only the military, so was the civil service too. I happen to be one of them. I'm not saying that I'm correct. I'm corrupt. But there was the whole civil service was slack at that time. And that was why we had it. And then my colleague talked about Buhari. Buhari was the worst. In fact, after Buhari, before Buhari came, this guy, IBB, that was the head of corruption. Wow. It was during his time that corruption went haywire at that time. So we are all, I'm not going to blame just the military alone or the civil service alone. We must blame all of us. We are all guilty of it, including myself standing here. Because if you don't, if you offer, if you have somebody, nobody to take your bribery, it will end there. But when you have a situation whereby even market women today, if you go to buy spare parts, the spare part owner will tell you that, do you want the new part or adulterated one? Can you believe that? That is also the country. So everything has gone haywire. We are in deep, deep trouble right now. And I'm hoping and praying that Tinubu, he was part of the corrupt system. But sometimes God works in a wonderful way. Like somebody said, I think it was Reno or Mockery, said that maybe, just maybe, God just decided to use one of them who knew where the bodies are buried to clean up the stench. That was how Tinubu came to power. So I guess the point I'm saying is that corruption is a big, big problem in Nigeria. And then I will really now talk about, about what to do about it, how to end it. How to end it is one arm of government you have not even mentioned. That is the judiciary. The judiciary, everybody has his own role. You have the chief, you have the executive, you have the legislature, you have the judiciary, and you have what we call the members of the first estate of the realm. Yes. That is the news media, journalists. If everybody stays in his lane and they are doing what is required of them, there will be less corruption in Nigeria.
Okay, Doctor,
that is my
I think Barrister is really not in agreement with what you're saying. I would like to go to Barrister
that is why
now.
we are having the debate.
Yes, let me take this question from one of our viewers. Olufemi Adeni is saying, my question is, what can be done to make our institutions work? Because it seems
what
to have
can be done in the mindset. We have to find a way to change the mindset.
Practices.
Taye, I don't want this thing to become a debate between just you and the two of us. What can be done is that, number one, our mindset as a people, as Nigerians, we are corrupt. Wow. We are very, very, everybody. In fact, I'm not going to put it for the military alone or for the civil service alone. We are corrupt. If you are a teacher, you are corrupt. If you are a principal of a school, you are corrupt. No, so the first thing we have to do is how to change the mindset of our people and to demonstrate to people that corruption will lead our country to hell. That no matter, I mean, look at the country. Look at how much money we are making. Nigeria to be one of the richest countries on earth, but because of this presidential system we have adopted, is so expensive. It's just too expensive. Look at how many advisors are serving Tinubu today. In fact, most of the money that the government generates is used to pay salary. And when you pay the salary are not even paid. They are stolen and put in private pocket. We have to find a way to be able to change that mindset. Until we do that, I am not too sure we're going to get anywhere.
Okay, let me quickly take a barrister's comment so that we can move to the next topic, because this is very important as well. We also have, I know you are not in agreement with what Doctor said about the judiciary. As a lawyer, of course, I know.
I like to care what he says about the judiciary.
Exactly. So,
yes.
Let me take this question, then you answer this question, and then your reaction together. Opan Nicolade is saying, is it proper for the three arms of government to be on the same page? Because maybe it wants some conflict so that when they are loggerheads, nobody is agreeing to anything on the ground. So
they are not supposed to be on the same page, but there's a way. If they are trying to copy what is happening in America. In fact, although America is in trouble now, right now too, because we had somebody who came in and did not observe the basic rules. Because it's true that we have three arms of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, and then the news, the journalists. Now, they are supposed to work together. There is a way to work together. When they don't work together, working together doesn't mean that they are trying to encourage corruption. They can still work together and yet check corruption. I think the debate
I think Barrister is agreeing with you on this particular one you're saying, Dr. Barrister. What do you think?
Let me quickly, in answering that question, let me bring back what Doctor said.
Yes.
He said, Nigeria, all of us are corrupt.
Yes.
Okay. So if all of us are corrupt,
maybe all. Let
me
sorry, my bro. If not all, maybe most of us are corrupt. I withdraw that.
If most of Nigerians are corrupt,
yes,
you now expect that a section that was appointed or selected from that same corrupt process will now be the one that will redeem the corrupt system.
It's possible. It's possible. I won't place my mind to it. It's possible.
So let me tell you where the challenge is.
Okay. All right.
Do you know why elections are the way they are in Nigeria?
No.
Because government will tell you power is not serve a la carte.
Do you know why? Talking.
Do you know why truly power is not serve a la carte? Truly.
What is the meaning of that, sir? I'm not too sure about that language.
But Doc, please, can you mute your mic? I mute mine when you are talking so that.
Oh, do I have my mic on? I didn't know that.
Don't worry, you're fine, sir. Yes.
Okay.
So, Nobody gives you political power. Say, come and take. You take it.
You grab it.
You grab it. So recently, there was a surge in young people's participation in the electoral process.
Yes.
And when young people wake up to participate, it can trigger a revolution and might trigger a change.
I haven't said that though. I haven't said young people, right? I haven't said that. Maybe you saw it. I didn't see it.
So, Doc, please, can you allow me, please, so that I will. So when that happens, the status quo will frustrate the process to ensure that those people that are rising do not participate. It's a war, it's a battle. You strategize. Those who are holding on to the levers of power will also strategize to frustrate you. It is just like an adversary in court. It is also a political war. So when that happens, you sit back. It's either you go back and say, well, they have defeated me this time. I will rework my tools and come back, or I give up and allow them have their way. What is happening in Nigeria now is that the status quo have frustrated the young entrants from entering the political space. And just that frustration, a lot of people are giving up and say, you know what, let them have their way.
Yeah.
And when you, with that kind of mindset, you can never change a system. The way you can change Nigeria, for example, fight corruption, is to go back to the restructuring model where government at the local level will be stronger than the government at the federal. That is the only way. The few people, take for example, we can never all agree to fight for a cause as federal government. Tinubu is president today. A lot of people from his area will support him, while people from outside of his area will criticize him. The same thing when Buhari was there. But if we say, for example, the revenue is generated from, let's say, in my place, Isako Central. The revenue generated from Isako Central does not need to go to Abuja before it comes back. All of us in Isako Central, we fight to protect it and kill to ensure that nobody takes it freely. But the moment it's going to Abuja, then come to Benin before it comes down, we will have no stake in it. And a lot of us will not even know that the revenue is being taken from there. And the only way we can achieve that is to have a proper people's participation in an election. And the status quo, the leaders know that if you have a people's participation in an election, their days will be numbered. So what do? They frustrate every election and promise you a new one subsequently. And the moment you are frustrated from that election, you will give up and say, they will rig the process anyway, so why do I need to participate? So that is what they do recurrently. From 2003, if you remember, Morris, who conducted an election that you could not call an election. A lot of people gave up. But Jega came and said, there will be hope. Mahmoud came and said, we will do it electronically. And at the end of the day, it dashed a lot of people's hope. And now, for me, my hope is not dashed. Do you know why my hope is not dashed? Because I wasn't expecting that it was going to be Eldorado. I wasn't expecting that Mahmoud was going to do what he said he would do. So now that I know that Mahmoud, the next election, what I need to do now is to plan to ensure that even if they are going to manipulate the process, I also have a way of ensuring that that process is not manipulated. That is the only way you fight a system. You don't fold your hand and say, oh, our leaders are thieves. Oh, these people are thieves. Let somebody come and rescue us. Nobody will come to rescue you. It is you that will rescue yourself, because we all contributed to the rot that you call Nigeria today. That is why everybody is praying for appointments. Look, Doc that is there today now, He's in America. The day he's appointed as minister in Nigeria, his village people, Doc will know that his primary school classmates, they are still existing. They will take out advert to celebrate him and tell him that it is our turn to talk. Not turn to work. It is our turn to talk. This is not government now. This is the everyday people. I hired a young man to do electrical for me. He added 300,000 to my bill. This is not government. This is the everyday people. So until we realize that if you want to rescue a system, how do they change power? Every election they come, they manipulate, they change button. The leaders are not quarreling. Don't be deceived.
Exactly.
PDP, Labour Party are not quarreling. The people that are quarreling are the ordinary people. Until the ordinary people unite and say, you know what? Yes, they will rig the election, but we will ensure that it is not rigged. We will stand blow for blow, face to face, tall for tall, height for height. That they will push, and you need to push back. But if you're thinking that one leader will come and know that the dead bodies are buried here, Tinubu's wife came and told us, we have been blessed, we are here to serve. But a few months after, they are buying cars of 1.5 billion naira for her. She no get motor before. She had vehicles before. She no get motor before.
Wow.
The House of Assembly, the National Assembly members, all of them, not one exception, all of them, all, both Labour, PDP, APC, ABGA, all of them are collecting vehicles worth 150 million naira. All, not exception. So are you now telling me that it lies in the party? No, it does not lie in the party. The judiciary also that we are talking about here, go and check the way they are appointed. Some of them are appointed through hereditary. My mother was a judge, I become a judge. So it is sexually transmitted. Your husband is a judge, you become a judge. Your husband is a governor, you become a judge. Are these the same people that are appointed by the status quo that you say will come clean the system? The answer is no. We all know APC, while they were in opposition, they knew the solution to all the problems. They told us already, we all know, if you decentralize the government, if you practice fiscal federalism, all of these things are there. But until we realize that we need people that will go there and do this thing, just the few that are remaining, and then we push them in the battle. It is not a war of going to street to carry guns and cutlasses. It is a war of wits, a war of electoral war. When the people are forcing to manipulate the process, we are also manipulating the process to put in good men. That is the only way you can have a system that will work. Otherwise, forget, next 5 years, we'll come back and be discussing the same thing. Obasanjo was corrupt. Goodluck Jonathan came in thwart Obasanjo's corruption.
Yeah.
Buhari came and it was an all-time, even though they claim he was fighting corruption. Go to EFCC. I don't even want to go there. Go to EFCC. I will leave the floor now.
Okay. I think right now we need to, because we are not going to ever conclude this particular topic on corruption in Nigeria. I want us to quickly take a bus stop in Ondo State because our time is really fast.
Okay.
Dr. Akeredolu, yes, you are from Ondo State, and I know that you have your legs, though you're not in Nigeria right now, you have your legs and your ears in Ondo State. By any means, tell us, do you by any means know the location of the governor of Ondo State right now?
Taye, before we do that, there is a point to address. I'm glad that my colleague, in a debate like this, we can agree to disagree, and we can also disagree to agree.
Yes.
And we've now reached a common consensus that mindset is something we have to work on.
Yeah.
I want to clear that. Everybody has raised his own viewpoint, and we've come to a consensus that mindset is one of the problems we have to address. Now, I will say that. Let me go to Ondo State that you are talking about.
Yes.
Now you are talking to a man who was
like I said, is it possible that you know exactly where the Ondo State governor is today?
I know.
Okay.
But I'm going to address. The guy is not Ibadan.
Okay.
Now, Ondo State governor has a problem. He's sick. And that he's sick, that's not the big issue. Anybody can be sick.
Okay.
It's not God. If you are sick, you will receive treatment. Now, but if it gets to a point that you are incapacitated to a point that you cannot fulfill your mission, it is time to quit and let somebody else take over. That's it. But what I'm saying, right now you ask where is Ondo State governor? He's at Ibadan. He's administering Ondo State from Ibadan.
Wow.
Now,
Okay.
let me learn.
Okay.
Now, what I'm saying is that the situation in Ondo State is not too good. Now, you are speaking to a man who has a great respect for Akeredolu. Akeredolu was president of the Nigerian Bar Association before he went into politics. And he won the first term, and he also won the second term. And in about a year, his term will come to an end. But the truth is that Akeredolu for now is sick. And if you are sick, how much can you do when you are sick? And that's why the system was designed to correct something like that. If that's why you have a deputy governor. If the governor is incapacitated to a point that he cannot perform his role, then you allow that, because it's not a hereditary title, it's not your father's title. If you can no longer perform your role, you allow the second man to take over. Yes. What is the big deal? So the situation in Ondo State, I don't like it. Now, in my own situation, I was the pioneer director of DFRI. DFRI is Directorate of Food, Roads, and Rural Infrastructure in Ondo State. I served under Uhai Makahibe, like I said, Rear Admiral Uhai Makahibe. So, and that is my state. I know Ondo State inside out. What we are saying is that the situation that is going on, that will be a medical report. Ondo State citizens are entitled to have a medical report about the condition of their governor. If in their judgment they feel the governor is incapacitated to such an extent that he cannot fulfill his mission, he should leave and let the other man step in, so that the government will not stagnate. The government and by the Ondo people will be suffering. I like Akeredolu as a man. He was a performing governor by the time he got sick. But he's sick. He's sick now that we cannot wish that away. So let us address the situation and let Governor Akeredolu himself, who I believe is a gentleman, if you know you have a serious condition, we're talking about leukemia. Leukemia, that's the cancer of the blood. That's a serious matter. We are saying it now because it's a public figure. Otherwise, I shouldn't be mentioning this, because I myself am a public servant. I know some of these things are areas that we do not bring to the open. But it has now come to a situation where a governor came back from medical leave, where he stayed for about a month or two, and still cannot perform. So this is becoming too much. Last time it was Yar'Adua. Yar'Adua died under a situation where his body had to be smuggled to Acho Rock. What is this? Is this the way to govern a country? A country of 200 million people? This is insane. And this is not something we should do. So exactly that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the situation in Ondo State is pitiful right now. If the governor cannot go back to his seat in Akure and be in a position to govern, it is time for him to resign. Why not?
Thank you very much, Doctor, for making those bold statements. Let me go to Barry Histon. You were a member of the bar when Akeredolu was the president, and right now we've seen a whole lot of shenanigans in the state. Right now, if you ask some persons on the street of Ondo State, some will tell you that Akeredolu is not around, but his son is the current acting governor of the state. Some will say his wife is the one holding the steering of the state. And a lot of issues, rumors of embezzlement, forging of signatures. We've been told by some people claimed that some monies were missing we heard of the rumor of the 7.3 billion naira used for constituencies in the state. And we had the commissioner of finance and the head of SSG and all of them, running around, a lot of things, policy from federal government missing in a person of the local government, for instance. And many things are kind of going wrong in the state. The last time anybody saw a picture or video of Akeredolu was over 3 months ago, when we were told he had a meeting with the South governor, Oyo, Osho, and Ogun, and all of them. Right now, I want to ask,
just
because
trying to paper the cracks. Paper the cracks. Be honest with the people.
The current news that we have right now coming from that state is that President Tinubu asked the deputy governor to sign an undated resignation letter because there was a peace treaty at a meeting that was held recently in Abuja. And we had pictures of that meeting where we had the deputy governor, the Speaker of the House, the SSG, the chairman of APC, and of course the president. I would like to ask you legally, does the president have the right to tell an elected officer in Nigeria to resign and sign a letter that was not dated in case it messes up or faults an agreement? Then that letter could be said to be valid. Does he have a right to do that?
I have not read it in the main news that the deputy governor signed an undated resignation letter. So
it has been confirmed by commissioners in the state.
Wait. So I will not take my discussion in the line of those stories that are discussed hush hush. What I will say here, first and foremost, is the fact that we're talking about corruption. Do you know that this act in itself, what is playing out in Ondo State, also is, what you can term massive corruption? The governor, as president of the Nigerian Bar Association around 2010, did admonish Yar'Adua to vacate his office if his head could not carry it. Today, the governor is in that same position. I am not seeing, I don't want to go to the area of performance that doctor talked about, because I would have asked him, he should benchmark that performance with the performance of where he is presently, if that is performance. But I don't want to go into that. Also, now the question would be, do you see the House of Assembly, for example? The last we heard was the House of Assembly trying to impeach a governor, a deputy governor, who is insisting that the right thing should be done. A House of Assembly, representative of the people. So what it means is that, and yet the people were not on the streets. The people were not protesting that, no, this shouldn't be. Nobody protested. Rather, the House of Assembly, the allegation was that the deputy governor was scheming to impeach the governor because the governor handed over power to him and he was away on medical leave. And so since he came, he's been in his Ibadan. He lived in most of his life in Ibadan anyway. Yeah. And now, you now have a president having to broker peace for peace to reign. And now to follow your allegations that to allow peace to reign, to allow the deputy governor to manage the affairs of the state, he had to write an undated resignation letter. Sign an undated. So go and run the state. The day that you try to remove the governor, and then if the governor doesn't like it, they can send this resignation letter to the House of Assembly, and all of that, just to achieve peace and ensure that power is properly transmitted according to the provisions of the Constitution. Where does that happen? Where else does this happen? Nowhere.
Except Nigeria.
The people are not bothered. The House of Assembly is not bothered. The friends of Akeredolu, none of them, apart from just coming to say the man should resign, none of them has been bold enough to approach the courts to say, even if you do, who appointed some of the judges in the state, the same state government? So the question, the issue here is, I can tell you, come another election year, the people will rather follow the party than follow candidates. So they will still say, oh, just like Doctor has said, the man perform. Perform what? Build a few good roads? Is there pipe bomb water running in the street of Akure? Nothing. So these are the challenges that we are talking about. Until, do you know that if not that there is revenue allocation sharing, if it is a situation where the governor will have to, every resources that is used in the state is generated internally from the local government to the states, and then you pay taxes to the federal. And in the absence of a governor, there will be no revenue because a lot of things will be lacking. But here, in the absence of a governor, every month there's allocation from Abuja. So the governor can afford to be outside of the states. Money will come and people will want to share and kill themselves over that. And then those who are in his good books will continue to run the affairs. Just like Yar'Adua, the same thing with Akeredolu. Today, it is either his wife or his son or his aide and all of those things. We cannot continue like this. The people need to consistent. It's not a 100-meter dash. It's a marathon. And a marathon are not run the way we sprint. You consistently run it. And until we consistently push back, that will tell you, with this attitude now, you will know that it is not just about a group of persons or about political party. It's about a collective. Until we consistently push back and insist that government is not an opportunity to compensate people, but a service, then we will never get it right. Akeredolu sees government as compensation. His family sees government as compensation. His people sees government as compensation. That is why even if the man is incapacitated, they will hold on to power because this is not their turn. This is not their turn and not the turn of the deputy governor. Thank you.
Okay, let me go to Doctor right now. Dr. Akintoye, we are about to wrap up the show in about 3 minutes, but I would like to ask you, the main issue of Ondo State right now, as said in the topic of the program for today, is the level of integrity of the political actors in Ondo State. Yeah, you said in your own advice, Akeredolu should be a man of repute, like you respect.
To be man enough.
It should be man enough
to resign and let his deputy take up as demanded by the constitution. There's a constitution. All that Tinubu is doing now, trying to mediate, that is not in the constitution. No, the constitution is there. You are setting aside the constitution and start begging people, please, do this. That's wrong. What we are saying is that Akeredolu knows his situation. Why can't the legislature or Ondo State Assembly demand for a comprehensive medical report on this man? That the whole public can read. Since he has refused to resign, he has opened himself to this kind of debate. We shouldn't be debating the head of a governor on television.
Now, do you think that this House of Assembly, who has been doing all it has been doing?
Yes.
Let me remind you, Doctor, that this same House of Assembly had a number of allegations against the deputy governor that right now does not exist because
why do they have allegations against the deputy governor? What of the governor himself? Now, we all know why Akeredolu is at Ibadan right now. Because you have the UCH, University Teaching Hospital at Ibadan. Now, they don't have such facility in Akure. Akure doesn't have that. We have a federal university there. We are asking them to allow that university to build its own teaching hospital so that if things like this happen, a governor can go there and see something. Our medical center is Ramchaku. It's nothing. So I think Akeredolu is trying to stay alive by staying at Ibadan. So if he has a crisis, he can easily be rushed to University of Ibadan. If they want to fly him to England, it will take time. So, but what we are saying is that everything stinks in Nigeria. This is not right. I guess my point now, what I'm saying, I'm challenging the House of Assembly. Demand for a comprehensive medical report on the situation of Akeredolu now, not tomorrow. So from that, you will be able to know whether it's right for Akeredolu to continue or to allow the deputy governor to step in.
Okay,
Yes.
Doctor, I think our time is really exhausted. I'd like you to take the last piece for today from Barrister Liboros. What would be your word? Because I would have wanted to ask you, what do you think is the level of integrity of this man acting these season movies that is unending in Ondo State?
They have no integrity.
We don't have the time.
All of them.
Can you tell us, Barrister, what is the way forward legally in 2 minutes?
Yeah, the way forward is for Nigerians, not even these men in Ondo or those at the National Assembly. Those men in Ondo House of Assembly were all selected to come and go. And they select them. So that's why they always do the bidding of a governor, a sitting governor, just the same way it is in every state House of Assembly. And that's why people will tell you nobody gives you power a la carte. It is for Nigerians. My parting shot is for Nigerians to be resolute. For fear of not succeeding, let them push and not give up, because I can tell you, the essence is not for INEC to work. It is for INEC to frustrate Nigerians. But Nigerians should be ready not to be frustrated with all those shenanigans, so that at the end of the day, the only way you can achieve success and victory is to push back. Otherwise, if you think that you will japa and go to another man's country, and then someday you will come back and meet a worse country, some of us will be here and will fight the status quo until we are able to carve out that small enclave, whether in our village or in our state, where things will work. We will not give up.
Thank you very much. And this is going to be the last piece on John Park Nigeria for this week. It's been a very engaging moment having Dr. Wunmi Akin today on the program today. And of course, Barrister Liboros Oshoma, a very big thank you to you. And from here, I'm going to be wishing the first family of Ondo State a good time and praying that the governor recuperates and of course gets better. But in the meantime, like the guests on today's show have all both advised, the right things should be done. The House of Assembly should do better and take a good
demand
look
for a medical report, a comprehensive medical report on this man, so that we know what we are talking about. The doctors know what is wrong. They will advise us correctly so that Ondo State will know what to do. This is simple.
Thank you very much.
Not rocket science.
I can imagine how this is to doctor, because of course we all have this dear state at the back of our mind and somewhere special in our heart. I want to say thank you very much for being here and watching John Park Nigeria this week. We'll come again like we always do on Sunday next week by 8 p.m. and we will bring another exciting topic that has to do with Nigeria and of course Nigerians. Until then, thank you so very much to Dr. Akeredolu, and thank you to Barrister Liboros Oshoma, and thank you for watching. Thank you. Let the conversation continue to drop your comments, like it and share it, and let everybody know what we said and what we did on the show today. Until next week Sunday, my name remains Taye Charles Sakun, and please, Nigeria, we need to do better.